Hello everyone, I'm David Marks. I'm music director at St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our virtual service today. We welcome you from wherever you are, from whenever you are. We have folks clicking in from all over the country, and we appreciate you checking us out, especially if this is your first time. St. Andrew's is an inclusive place, a welcoming place, and we invite you to bring everything you are when you come visit us in our virtual service. If you will, take a moment and register down below the video our virtual friendship tablet. We'd like to know who's here. We have a lot of folks who watch us but rarely sign in, and so if you take a minute and do that, we'd appreciate it. We would love to see your name and where you are. We live in difficult times, don't we? We'd love to be able to get together in person to support each other. But until that can happen again, use your imagination. Imagine your friends around you. And we hope that this will be a respite from the difficult times that we're in. Again, welcome, and we hope you find something here that gives you peace. Every way of compassion, every road of peace, every life-giving path is welcome here. Every way of compassion, every road of peace, every life-giving path is welcome here. We are different and the same, naming holy many names. Every way of compassion, every road of peace, every life-giving path is welcome here.
Let's prepare our hearts and minds for worship with the call to community. Spirit of life and love, we gather together in different ways this morning. From computer screens, from phones, from car radios, we gather, reaching across the wires, waving from a safe distance. To come together in religious community, from living room to front porch to car seat, we gather as we are able, ready to be of service to each other, to the world, ready to build the community of hope and of love as we face this bright morning. We are apart, but we are together, offering our love, our commitment, our hope, and our prayers in service to one another and to this world. It is a new way, but also an old way, that we come together and worship today. Let us worship together.
How can we name a love that wakens heart and mind, indwelling all we know or think, or do, or seek, or find? Within our daily world, in every human face, love
We have some beautiful words from Gwen Matthews for our centering time. So I invite you to sit back and relax wherever you are, wherever you're imagining yourself to be, and listen to these words. Feel that each breath, every inhale, exhale, we are living, breathing, connected. We are the whole, complete, beautiful selves that we were born to be. Feel that in your bones, in your muscles, in your heart and your blood. That is the extraordinary you. The you who was born for this time, this place, this moment. Feel that, the struggle, the worry, the pain, the loss, the grief. It is still you. You are still whole, complete, beautiful, extraordinary. Feel that.
Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path.
Today's reading comes from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verses 27 through 32. You've heard the commandment, no committing adultery. But I tell you that those who look lustfully at others have already committed adultery with them in their hearts. If your right eye causes you to sin, pluck it out and throw it away. It's better to lose part of your body than to have it all cast into Gehenna. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. It's better to lose part of your body than to have it all cast into Gehenna. It was also said, whenever a couple divorces, each partner must get a decree of divorce. But I tell you that everyone who divorces, except because of adultery, forces the spouse to commit adultery. Those who marry the divorced also commit adultery. Ancient words from our tradition for our present day understanding.
In this sermon series, we're going through the Sermon on the Mount, not as Christians, not as religious people, but as human beings trying to cope through a very difficult time and trying to remember our own hearts through the teachings of this profound and compassionate rabbi. In this part of the Sermon on the Mount, this is the part where Jesus is saying, you've heard it said, but I say to you. And a lot of people misunderstand this section of the Sermon on the Mount as Jesus outgrowing Judaism. That's not at all what is happening. Jesus is Jewish from birth to death. And what he's saying is the heart of Judaism, the heart of Christianity, the heart of any religion is this compassion. And so religion gives us the starting place to that compassion, but it's never the whole story. It's always the first word, not the last word in our growth. So somebody who is fundamentalist in the sense of believing that you can look at any religion, Judaism or Christianity, and see the fullness of spiritual growth is like somebody who's trying to live in their original children's clothes. We outgrow our starting place, and that's what we're supposed to do in religion. Life is outgrowing yesterday's understanding. So what Jesus is doing is not saying that Judaism is wrong. He's saying that any religion is living, growing, and so we follow it by loving with all of our heart, all of our mind, and all of our strength. He's going to say, each place along the way, that things like anger, last week he looked at anger, that emotion is not wrong, but it can trap us. If we don't learn the art of being angry without losing love, we can get trapped in anger. And today, what he's going to talk about is desire. He's saying not that desire is wrong, but just like anger, desire has certain properties to it that can be addictive, that can become a habit, and that can become a worldview. Desire is good, but if it becomes a worldview where you're always wanting more, we're always wanting to be stimulated, we're always wanting to accomplish, it creates a kind of hollowness inside of us. So what the teaching requires is that we have incredible compassion for ourselves, because what a Jesus or a Buddha does is take us deep into our own hearts. And sometimes that's not a pleasant thing to see at first. But instead of seeing that as a flaw, to see that as a beginning place. The raw energy of what's going to grow into love. Now, when we look at desire, what Jesus is going to say is that when we try to desire another person in the same way that we desire an object, we lose the story that they bring into our lives. That when I try to fit other people into my story, I can't hear theirs. And that's happening a lot in the world today, where white people are listening to the stories of Black Lives Matter and they're trying to make sense of it within their white experience, and you lose that sense that you're one part of a larger kind of drama that's taking place. When we see other people as sort of the bit players in our own drama, we lose the majesty of the great drama that we all share. So Jesus is going to say, if you desire, he says a woman, and he's addressing the men in the group. He's saying, if you desire a woman the way that you desire an object, that you're already committing adultery in your own heart. Think of it this way. When I want to use another person for my own gratification, I am using them and throwing them away. And in this culture where women were seen as objects, were seen as possessions, that literally meant that some women, when they were divorced or thrown out, they had to go into prostitution to survive in that cruel culture. So what Jesus is saying isn't just about particular relationships, particularly not straight relationships, but what it is saying is, when I love another woman in my mind like I would love a Barbie doll, I have to ignore the most important parts of her. If I love a man like I love a Barbie doll, I have to do the same thing. So that when we, as children, develop these romantic fantasies about another person and then try to fulfill them in our actual life, we can be very brutal to the people that we meet. So desire, again, it's a good thing. At the same time, it needs to grow into justice. It needs to care about what our actions mean to someone else. Desire can become addictive, just like anger can become addictive. Each time we desire something, it's almost like a little spider thread that yokes us back to that feeling and emotion. Desire is a wonderful thing. Life would be impoverished without desire. But again, if we objectify human beings, if we love them like we love objects, then we bring injustice into the world, because they have a full set of needs, not just the ones that we want to deal with. So that's the first thing I think Jesus is implying, is that we have to love people within their own stories. Then secondly, that when we love another person like we love an object, we lose the otherness that we're seeking for in a relationship. When I look at you as an object for my gratification, I lose your otherness. I lose the subjectivity that I'm really looking for. If I don't want to be alone, then I have to love you as other than myself, completely outside the needs that I have. There's overlap, and there's nothing wrong with loving a person in a respectful, desiring way. But at the same time, what I'm looking for is someone who's other than me, who wants to be with me. That the very fact that I can't control them is what makes that voluntary and makes it meaningful. Think for a moment what the world looks like through the lens of desire. How that changes how we observe other people. Think in your own life of times when you thought you were in love with someone, but you really wanted to use them. It's very human. And when we start off, those desires are all we have. So Jesus isn't throwing away the desire, but seeing that as a starting place. And it's going to grow into something beautiful and meaningful. If there's no larva, then you're not going to have a butterfly. So that kind of grub worm feeling that we sometimes have of really needing to desire something to fulfill ourselves is the starting place to a love that doesn't need to do that. Jesus is talking about how we transition and transform desire into love. Last week we saw how Jesus was wanting us to transform anger into kind of the courage to love. This is sort of the temperance side of virtue. How do we love in a way that allows other people to be separate? And it's exactly the parts of another person that we can't possess and control that are the true treasure. That's what makes them our friend. That's what makes them our equal. That's what makes them the subject of reverence. So then the third thing is that when we desire another person like we desire an object, we lose our sense of the whole of things. We're not loving someone in their environment that makes them happy. It's like capturing an animal out of the wild, putting a sweater on them and thinking that that's love. We need to love beings in their environment, their place in the whole, not in their place in our drama alone, but what do they mean for the whole world? When I was a kid, I had an experience I think it's Tilt-A-Will. I've told the story before, and I always forget to look up the title. It's on the playground, and it's a large circular disc made of metal, and it spins around. And if you're standing in the middle, you can keep your balance. But if you're on the edges of it, you get thrown off. You have to hold on to the bars then. And for me, that's a metaphor for this kind of insight, that our happiness depends on us staying in balance with the whole of things. When we love parts of life, but not all of life, it creates a gravitational field that throws us all around. So staying balanced, staying happy with the whole of things is a way of keeping balance all through life, the good, the bad, when the tide comes in, when the tide goes out. I think this is symbolized in religions around the world with an umbrella, where you have these Hindu pictures of gods with an umbrella, and when it's closed, it's a particular thing. When it opens up, it's everything. I think this is also the symbolism behind the mustard seed, where you start with something very small, something very tangible, something very human, but it's a seed that then grows into a relationship with everything, something that's in balance with everything. And I think when the sages talk about loving God, I think what they're talking about is taking our small personal loves and universalizing it. That God is a symbol, allowing us to get a sense beyond ourselves to something that unites us with everything. There's a tie that binds us with everyone and everything. And our little hearts at the beginning need symbols that get us beyond the limitations that we would start with. So when we talk about happiness, we can't really detach that from a balance with the whole of things. We have to love other people, but we have to love them in their place on the tree of life. And we have to live our lives from the particular place we find ourselves on. So a lot of what Jesus is talking about is loving the other person with their own story, loving them as something other than ourselves, and finally loving in a way that allows a wholeness for everybody. So when Jesus says in this passage, if your eye causes you to sin, pluck it out, that's not good psychological advice, obviously. Think of a Zen master trying to exaggerate so that you get the point. I think what he's saying is that when we latch onto any particular thing in life, it can distract us from our love of the whole. When we attach ourselves to any particular being and love them not as a subject, but as an object, we lose the friendship that we're really looking for. So we love others, but we love them within their place in the whole of life. We love others, but we love them in a way that we can keep our balance with the whole. I realize this is kind of a jumbled sermon, but I think I can tie it together with this last paragraph. Let's see if that's true. So I think Jesus is asking us this question through this teaching. Can you love another person without needing to possess them? Can you delight in the freedom that makes the other person beautiful to you? Can you desire another person without needing to dominate or control them? Can you love the otherness that distinguishes a subject from an object? Emotions like desire and anger and sadness are not bad. They are our only starting places on the path to love. So let us begin with our desire or our anger or our sadness at the other, and then deepen and broaden that emotion until it becomes respect for and delight in the other's freedom, delight in the fact that they do not belong to us, delight in their place in the whole of things, delight in their otherness. Thank you for sharing this morning with us. Please go in peace.
Our offering time is an opportunity to pause and reflect and consider the many ways we can use our own resources to help those in the world around us. If your family is interested and able in making a financial donation, you can use the link below this video. You might consider specifying where you'd like that donation to go. Right now, St. Andrews is supporting families in purchasing school supplies, and so you can write back to school in your memo to help the donation go to those families in need. You might also consider making your donation to support Hilda and Yvonne and their family. Outside of financial donations, there's many ways you can still support those in your community. It might be something like providing a meal for the family that you live with, or reaching out to a neighbor who maybe hasn't had a visitor in a while, or running errand for a friend who hasn't been able to safely get outside of their home. Regardless, this opportunity now is the time to pause and think about the ways we use our brains, our hearts, our hands, our resources to bring love and joy to the world around us.
Awe and wonder, gratitude, deep thanksgiving, sing Alleluia. Gifts and blessings, love we tell, Spirit breathing, all is well. Spirit breathing, all is well.
to our prayer concerns. And just as a reminder, we don't believe that prayer is some kind of magical incantation to take away our problems. Prayer is a way of going deeper within ourselves in community, to remember the tie that binds us together, to remember depths within our own heart that we sometimes lose touch with. So the concerns that we shared this week, Miriam finally got some good news that she's been approved for a kidney transplant, which is wonderful. She's been through so much. This is great news. Beth continues to improve after her hip surgery. In fact, has been working around the church to help in our different ministries that help people without shelter and people in need. John and Abigail. John is like really the heart of this service. He's the one that edits and came up with it. And he and Abigail have gone to Iowa for the funeral of his father. And his father was also very, very instrumental and helpful in getting us to this point. So we remember them at this time and grateful for them in our lives. We pray for the loss of John Lewis, who's such a prophetic figure in the civil rights struggle. He will be missed. Also, we remember in our hearts the protesters that are being vilified, that are being arrested in an unmarked van, and yet so courageously stand up for the rights of all of us. We carried them in our hearts this week. So let us join together in prayer. And again, we're not trying to call for magic. We are remembering the mystery. We are interconnected, and we do affect each other in very mysterious ways if we are open to it. So we are going through so much suffering. It is easy to lose faith in humanity, in life, and even in ourselves. May this time of prayer lead us deep within our own hearts. May we have compassion for what we find there, whether we find hope or despair, love or hate. May we bathe our hearts in compassion, that our fear might become courage, our desire might become love, and our despair might become hope. In all of the names of love, we pray. Well, now as you go out into this tumultuous time, may you remember there is always a peace beneath the storm. May you remember there is always a treasure hidden in the most ordinary of moments. There is always a song playing in the background if we but tune our hearts to life. Jesus said, "You are the light of the world." He said, "Let your light shine, that other people may be affected by that love, and remember there is a tie that binds us all together." Thank you for spending this morning with us. Go in peace.
We are the ones we've been waiting for. We can't hold back anymore. God, who is faithful, will give us all the courage to answer the call.